Um, we have Nafi Cunningham. She's Director of Choices for Care. And she's going to be taking us through a PowerPoint presentation discussing My Life, My Choice for advanced care plan. So welcome, Nafi. I'm happy that you're here today. And I know you're on vacation right now, so I appreciate you taking the time out to come and do this for us.
Thank you so much, Angie, for inviting me to join you today. I'm very grateful. I would tell Angie that even whether it's one person who shows up or 15, 20, I'm grateful just to be able to share this information with anybody who's willing to listen. As she said, my name is Nafi Cunningham, and I am with Stratum Health System. Stratum is the parent company for Tidewell Hospice. Most people know Tidewell very well, but have not heard of Stratum because as the parent company, we have other companies that work in tandem with Tidewell to provide the continuum of care. So we have Connexus Medical Services, and these are mobile doctors who provide primary care to individuals who are in facilities or in their own homes. So the doctors will go visit them, or we also have a palliative care unit with Connexus Medical Services. We have Avidity Home Health, and that's a Medicare certified home health agency. Approved Home Health is a private duty company. And then we have Tidewell Hospice, which provides help for people who have advanced illness. So all of that, whatever stage of life you're in, Tidewell is here, or Stratum is here to assist the community in the various stages of life. Now, given that we deal with a wide array of patients and their needs, we do see the need of providing this education about advanced directive. So my sole purpose, the position that I have, is going out, working with the hospitals, the doctor's offices, the churches, the community in general, to bring the awareness, raise the awareness about the importance of advanced directives. We have compiled documents, but have our lawyers work through it, look through it, and we provide this as a community service. This is something that we're giving to the community absolutely free. There's no free to it. And when COVID came about, we've decided to go ahead and even do like one-on-one Zooms. In the past, it was more just presentation style, and I hand over the documents. If you have questions, I answer those questions for you. But now we see even greater need for it. So they've allowed us to, corporate has allowed us to go ahead and have one-on-one meetings. So if you have patients, family members who's like, you know what, I know this is important, but I don't know where to get started, you could refer them to us, and we will set up an appointment with them, sit down one-on-one, talk about their individual needs and their concerns and how they can go about this process with the documents that we can provide. Or if they choose to go to a lawyer too, they can do that. So I am going to go through and share this PowerPoint with you all. Let me see if share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So the name of the program is called My Life, My Choice, because this is about your choices and your life. And throughout life, we all make decisions about all these different things, but we want people to stop for a moment and take a look at their life and the choices they want. So I am not an attorney. So we just want a quick disclaimer that I'm not an attorney, but I went through a certification course through Respecting Choices to get my certification to talk about advanced and teach advanced care planning. So we don't discourage folks to go see a lawyer if they have the funds and if they want to go that route. But this is just to make sure that everybody has the basic information to get this started, because it's so important. We want to educate people about advanced directives. Now, it's always too soon until it's too late. And for people who fall ill or you work in the medical field, we always procrastinate and wait. Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. We don't need it right now. Well, unfortunately, sometimes we can't foresee the future, and we don't know and predict when something is going to happen. Nobody wants to have a heart attack or stroke or plan to have an accident and things of that nature. But we plan for the most important things in our lives. our retirement, our vacations, our weddings, but we don't plan for our care because we really don't take the time to reflect on those. We think everything is going to be hunky-dory, and until the very end, you live into your 80s, your 90s, or even hundreds, and you fall, die in your sleep. And so unfortunately, life doesn't always work that way. So we try to educate people, talk about determining what your wishes are, how do you create the documents, and how do you share these documents as well. So advanced directives, many people think about it and they say, oh, it's talking about death and dying. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to have those conversations. And so it's really a very difficult conversation for a lot of people. And so there's no really easy way to start that process. For some people, it's easier than for others. And so we want people to just stop and reflect and think about some of these questions here. Do you have any significant health problems right now? Some people do, some people don't. But just because you don't does not mean that you should not go ahead and have these conversations ahead of time. What if you receive an unexpected diagnosis? Well, that is something that happens on a daily basis in life. People wake up, they get a cancer diagnosis, or have things that they've been living with, didn't know about it, fall ill, strokes, heart attacks. All of these things are sometimes unexpected and unplanned for. So what do we need to do in case something happens? Or sometimes you could get in a car accident. I've had personally an uncle of mine, my mom's younger brother, who was in a car accident when he was in 28, 29. And then he was paralyzed from the neck down. So unexpected things do happen where you don't know, you don't plan for. So we want people to just stop for a moment, reflect on what they would want should something happen and how they want to be cared for. So what is advanced care planning? It's just about making your medical decisions for the future. You're unable to communicate when you have your advanced care planning in order for that to become in effect. So it's somebody else is writing down what you want and how you would want to be cared for should something happen to you. Now, again, nobody can predict anything. You cannot predict all the different scenarios that can happen. But when you take the time to reflect on your goals and your values, you have a great understanding of possible future situations and decisions that can be made. And having those discussions with your loved ones, it helps them understand where you stand with life. What are your thought process? So even if you're not like listing every single scenario, which we cannot, they can have an understanding of who you are and why you make those decisions. So any other situation that come up, they can decide based on what you had the conversation with them. So it is important for people to understand this is not about, okay, I'm making things happen. I'm documenting things so things can go bad. No, you're making the decision in case you're unable to communicate. As long as you're able to communicate, you are making your own decisions. So you're just planning for the future in case something happens in the future and you're unable to communicate for yourself. So it's been shown that when you have these conversations ahead of time, it is very helpful to your family. So advanced care planning is allowing you to make decisions for yourself regarding anything that happens in the future. It doesn't come in effect until you become incapacitated or unable to communicate. And when you do these documents ahead of time, you are definitely going to reduce the stress for your family and the anxiety that you put on your family. The guilt, the burden of them questioning and not knowing what you would have wanted because this conversation was never had. Are they making the right decisions for you? I know personally people who are still living with some guilt because they made decisions for their loved ones and then they were questioning, is this what mom would have wanted? I had a colleague who quit her job working for hospice because she was not sure. And the fact that she was around hospice and people, falling ill, it constantly reminded her of this. And as she's explaining this to me, she's sobbing. So think about not only your own care and what you're doing for yourself when you do this, but think about what you're doing also for your loved ones, because you really will relieve the stress and the burden off of them. It also helps make sure that your wishes are going to be honored, because you have the discussion with the people who will listen to you, because that's important. We'll cover that in a little bit. But getting the right people to be on your team, because this is really part of your team. And making this a gift to your family, because you're lifting that burden. So we all understand, and I hope many of you know Terry Schiavo. And Terry was a young 26-year-old young lady, and she was married, and she had a brain aneurysm, and she was in a coma for 15 years. Now, after many years, Terry's husband was thinking, decided Terry wouldn't want to live this way. For him, Terry wouldn't like to live this way, but the parents of Terry were really against that and wanted to proceed and find care. They wanted miracles to come along, their science, what have you. And so they did not want to pull the plug. So this became a very long court battle over many years, costing a lot of money, became a public event. So it went to the Supreme Court making the decision. So advanced care planning is really it can be very difficult for parents or family members to make at end of life stage, because we all know that when it comes to making decisions like this, the emotions take over instead of logic. So having these discussions ahead of time really make a huge difference. So think about your beliefs and your values, understanding medical treatment, making consideration of family experiences as well. What has happened in your family? Whether good, that things went well because advanced directives were in place, or things went really crazy because there was no plan in place and there was bickering or infighting amongst family. So take these points into consideration. What is it that you want to do for your family? What do you want? What example do you want to emulate for your loved ones as well? The medical treatment part is really crucial for people to sit down with their healthcare providers to have those conversations and have a clear understanding of what these processes are, what these treatment plans are, intubation, the feeding tubes and the breathing machines. All of these need to be understood in order for people to be able to make clear decisions whether or not they want this type of treatment. So I'm going to share with you something that's called Go Wish, and it is a great tool that helps people to determine what do you want to include in your directives. A lot of times people will say, well, I just don't want to be a burden to my family. Or you might just want to say, well, I want to just make sure my finances is all set or my family's there. But there are other things that you might want to consider that you're not thinking of, but which makes a huge difference on your comfort and your care. And this is all that it's all about. You want people to know how to take care of you, to keep you comfortable and care for you during these times. So these cards is usually a deck of cards that you can purchase, or you can go to the website. And this is a session that you can go on the website, and the cards have statements on them. And you can determine whether this is something that's very important, somewhat important, or not important at all. So what's important to me might be very different from what's important to Angie. But if Angie's taking care of me, she's just going to go by what's important to her, but that might not be important to me at all. So it's a matter of, do you understand your person? Do you realize the things that are important to your person versus what's important to you? So this is not about the surrogate making a decision. This is about the individual who is sick. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So making your wishes known is all about the communication and sharing with the individuals what is important to you, and adequately having the ability to share your thoughts and feelings with your loved ones or your friends. It's not always certain that you're going to choose family over friends, because sometimes people are more comfortable with their friends, or family member might not be comfortable making these decisions. But make sure that you question and find out if that individual is willing and to honor your wishes. Because if they're unable to fulfill your wishes, they are not the right person for you. Get somebody who understands you, get somebody who's going to say, yes, I'm going to be able to do this. So what is a living will? Don't confuse a living will with your last will and testament. A living will is a written or oral statement that's talking about your future medical decisions should you become unable to speak for yourself. It takes an effect while you're still alive. Your last will and testament has to deal with your private properties, your finances, your belongings, and it takes an effect after you've passed away. So there's a difference between the two. And a lot of people will say, well, I already have a will. Well, that will is taking care of your finances and your property. It's not talking about who is going to be your, what do you want as far as your medical care. So we want people to make that distinction and make sure that you have both documents in place, because the other one does not cover your health care. And anybody who's 18 or older should have a living will. Why should you have a living will? Because as we showed earlier with the Terry Schiavo situation, life can change in an instant. On a daily basis, there's at least 100+ people who get into a car accident. We don't want to be in that statistic of being in a stage where our loved ones or the doctors do not know how to care for us and are doing all sorts of things. So there are good reasons, financial, the stability for your family, and also helping the healthcare providers to be able to give you the best quality of care. But in all of this, while you do the reflection, think about it, and do the documents, it's important to get the right person to carry out your wishes. So your healthcare surrogate should be somebody who's at least 18 years of age, and somebody who's willing to make these decisions that you want for you. They're not making decisions for themselves, they're making decisions on your behalf. So make sure the person that you're choosing will agree to those the terms that are being laid out in your living will. We recommend that you get at least 2 individuals. Why? Because when you have one person, they could be unavailable, they could be out of town, you could be traveling with them, maybe get into an accident. So it's recommended you get a primary person and then you have a secondary or even a third person listed on your documents. That's a very good idea. And your healthcare surrogate should be somebody who is willing and accessible. If you choose somebody who's always out of the country, who's not willing to pick up their phone, who's not very responsive, that might not be the best person. Nowadays, we are in an age where the families are all scattered all over the country even. So you might have, somebody who's here, but your children live in New York, Wisconsin, what have you, but they're going to be your healthcare surrogate. But make sure that individual is really accessible. These days, technology has allowed us to not need somebody who's down the street from us. With DocuSign, with faxing, emailing, makes things a whole lot easier for people to give their signatures and their okays. So just make sure that individual is willing and accessible to make decisions on your behalf. That person also, like I said earlier, has to be willing to learn about your choices. Because if you say, hey, I want blood transfusion, but Mary's like, no, I don't agree with blood transfusion. I don't want you to get blood transfusions. So Mary's not going to be able to carry out your wish in that regard. Don't make Mary your healthcare surrogate, because she's clearly told you that she's against that. Now, if she tells you, well, that's not what I would do for myself, but I'm willing to go ahead and make those type of decisions, then she will be able to honor your wishes. So make sure that the individual will learn about your preferences, whether it's religious, cultural, personal, or whatever beliefs that you have, that they're okay with carrying out the wish in that regard. And somebody who can make decisions in case of, sudden incidents. Sometimes you have to make quick decisions as well. So those are things to think about. And if you're not somebody who can handle stress, this is not the job for you to, because this can be very stressful. And again, 18 years or older, you cannot, have a 15-year-old, 16-year-old teenager just because you're close to them. Not a good idea. So choose somebody who's older. So other thoughts to ponder about. How do you make sure your wishes will be followed? The communication is crucial. You need to talk to your loved ones. You need to have these conversations ahead of time. Without the conversation, just filing documents and putting it away doesn't do you much good. Please help them understand where you stand and why you want this done. And how often should your living will be revised? We say at least, we have something called the 5 Ds, at least every decade, if not more often. The person who you are in your 50s is different to the person you are in your 30s. So don't just say, well, I did 20 years ago, everything is all set. This is a evolving document. As you age, as you come across experiences, you change your mind on certain things, you should make sure that those are all reflected in the documents. So every decade, if you're divorced, might be a good time to go ahead and make those changes. Your health is declining. You've got a new diagnosis, and death, and your healthcare surrogate dies. So those are all different reasons to make sure that you revise your living will. They will be honored in other states if you're traveling. We make the recommendation if you live here 6 months out of the year and you live in North Carolina 6 months out of the year, have one for each state, just to simplify things. But if it's properly executed in the state that you live in, such as Florida, and you have all your documents set, when you travel to Georgia, Tennessee, you should be able to utilize your documents there too. But just as if you have 2 residences, we recommend just getting one for each state to make things simpler. And you can change your mind. It's revocable. You can, substitute things, change things anytime you want. There's no set time. It's never set in stone. And you should never store this particular document at the bank or in a place where you cannot have access to it. This is something that can be in your car, that can be, in your nightstand. Some people say on your refrigerator, but make sure it's accessible, and share copies with your healthcare providers for sure. Your primary care should have it. If you have specialists such as cardiologists or your oncologists, they should also have a copy. The individuals who you've elected to be your healthcare surrogate should have a copy as well. And so that you just make sure that if something happens, they will be able to provide this to the people, your healthcare providers taking care of you at that time. So getting the conversation started is usually the hard part. A lot of people will say, well, I tried to talk to my children, they don't want to hear about it, or my spouse doesn't want to hear about it. But it's a crucial conversation. Don't make it a heavy conversation. Referencing to movies, referencing to situations, family experiences. That wish game is really easy. A lot of people have found it an easy way to utilize that. So those are all different ways that you can get the conversation going, so that, at least ease into it and get to the point of being able to draw the documents and finalize things for yourself. So how do you create the documents? As I said earlier, we have a packet that we've put together. Given that we're doing this virtually, if you go to our website, you can have and download these documents absolutely free. If you cannot download it, let me know. There's a number you can call or send me an email, and I'll be happy to get a packet to you as well. This program, as I said earlier, is absolutely free to anybody who lives in our 4 county areas, covering Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, and DeSoto counties. So if you're here, or if you don't live there and want to download it, you can too. But our services for the one-on-ones and going to people in churches and doctors' offices and hospitals are available in those 4 county areas. Anybody who has questions, need to sit down one-on-one, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to you and walk them through the documents as after they download it and review it. Do I have any questions?
No,
That's good. Let me see here. Awesome. Yes. Is it April?
Yes.
Hi.
So I'm a nurse practitioner. I work in the lung health clinic. We take care of patients with all severities of lung issues, mostly emphysema and chronic bronchitis. So we have these conversations a lot with our patients. We have documents through the hospital anyway, the hospital branded versions to give to our patients. But here's the first response that I get when I ask my patients whether they have a living will. They automatically connect a living will with what they want the disposition of their body to be after they have passed. I get a lot of, well, I want to be cremated. I get that a lot, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What about a living will? Wow.
Yeah. So I'm maybe I just need your expertise and to help me transition patients from the thought of living will means what they do with the body after it's passed to actually planning. Like what's your first thought there?
Well, it's like it says, living will. This isn't about your body after. This is about your health while you're still alive. That's why it's called a living will. Okay.
I
So
like it.
that is the easiest. It's about your goals of care. That's another phrase you can use. Living will is about your goals of care. How do you want to be cared for if you became ill?
Okay. I like it.
You like that?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, and at any time I've been talking with Holly and Saida in the heart unit as well. We have a flyer that people can share with individuals if they want that one-on-one, and we'll see if maybe we can even put the SMH logo on there, work with you guys if people are interested and they haven't had the conversation. It doesn't matter that they use SMH's form or Stratum's form or the state form. What matters is they have this conversation and have a clear understanding from me what this means and what this entails. That is the whole agenda of the program, is increasing the number of people who have this when they come to see you guys. When they come to see you, if they eventually make it to hospice, because it really helps you, healthcare providers. It helps the patient who has sat down and thought about these things. It helps the family members. So it helps everybody. Everybody really gains from having this conversation ahead of time. So that is the ultimate goal. How do we Wisconsin, where I had my training, 92% of people who go into hospital have this. They've normalized it. We're in the 30s here, and we can do better. And so how do we work together to work with your patients and making sure that happens?
Okay. Thank you.
So let us know how we can help anytime.
Well, thank you so much, Nafi. I appreciate it, and I hope it was helpful for everyone. And I will definitely post it on the YouTube channel from SMH site, and I'll send out the link for that once I have edited it.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Angie, for reaching out. I appreciate it. And if there's anything we can do in the future, let us know.
Okay, well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New
Thank
Year
you.
to everybody. All right. You have a good one.
Be safe. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.